What's going on? SmartHelping.com here. I'm going to do a little bit of a how-to today, and the reason why I'm doing it, this is more of educational into how the SUMIFS formula works. The reason why I want to focus on it is literally that's the gateway, that's like the pathway to how I even started working online to a more in-depth and professional level, and how I started. I literally used the sum ifs calculation in Excel, and let me just write that out. It's the SUMIFS. It's a function, and once I figured that out, um, it's just opened up so much in financial modeling and in just general data analysis or general work in Excel. The sum ifs function is probably the top function if I had to only pick one that's the most influential. And once you know it, you can really branch off from there and you can do a lot of things, but you need to know it. You can't not know it if you're going to work in Excel or use Excel efficiently. So I like to equate it to human history and the tire, or the more broadly, the wheel. Once humans learned how to build a wheel out of different materials and different things, they advanced a lot. And the wheel, once you knew how to build it, you could then put it into all sorts of different things and do all kinds of stuff. So a function in Excel is like the wheel. Once you know how to build it, and I'm going to teach you here how to use the sum ifs function. That's the first step, is knowing how to build it, and then the next thing is you figure out all the different ways that it can be used, because all the people who don't bother to learn it will be asking other people and pay them to do work in Excel that involves doing it. And this is where the value lies. And I've literally, I've been going at this for like almost 7 years now, and I literally have unlimited work. I could do as much or as little work as I want at a very comfortable rate. And the sum ifs formula is one of the biggest things I use on a daily basis for everything I do. There's a lot of other stuff, but that's like, if you're going to learn something, this is a good one to know. So I'm going to do a video on it. Uh, Now, first of all, you should know there's a sum if and a sum ifs. The one with the S is the best one. I can only think of one situation where I used the sum if without the S, just, sum if, and I don't like it. And I've never liked it. Ever since I first started, I always liked the sum ifs better. It was just more robust. There's more you can do with it. And I just like the style of the syntax better with it as well. So let's look at the general format of SUMIFS. If you're going to use it, so in Excel you have cells here, and you can put a function into a cell by by hitting the equal sign, and then you type a function. Today I'm looking at the SUMIFS function, SUMIFS, and then a and forgive me, um, I don't open parenthesis, I guess you could call it. I don't know a lot of the technical terms for things necessarily, but I just know how, like, obviously I've used them for like thousands and thousands of hours of work. I think this is called open parenthesis. So you do sum ifs, open parenthesis, and then the first thing you're doing is, well, if you're doing sum ifs, the only reason you're doing it is because you need to sum a range of values. So if there's a bunch of number values or dollar values, or it has to be like a number value, it can't be like words. If you've got a range of values and you want to only sum up certain values based on some other criteria. Now, it could be criteria within that column, like sum ifs all the values if they're greater than a number, or if they're equal to 5, or less than a number, or less than 0, greater than 0. Um, you could also sum ifs all the values in a column if other criteria meet, other data in other columns meet that same criteria. So, I guess let me just put some random data in here. Let's say I have 5, 56, 1, 2, negative 50. And at the end of the video, I'm also going to show you some applications. That's why I'm in the enterprise SaaS model right now, because I'm going to show you how I use the SUMIFS in a couple different things. And oh, and if you can, hit the subscribe button below on YouTube. I always forget to tell people this. It helps me. It's great for support of the channel. And obviously visit smarthelping.com. That's where I build all my financial models. There's a lot of cool stuff there, so check that out as well. Okay, so let's say some ifs. We've got a range of values here, and let's say we'll start with a single criteria. So we'll start very simply here first. So I want to do equals SUMIFS open parenthesis, and you could sum the entire range if you want, or just select it manually. Um, Usually I try to do situations where I'm summing the entire column. It's just easier for range formatting and you'll have less errors if you can do that. So sum ifs column E, if, and then I'm going to do column E again. So I want to sum up everything in column E, and then so the first is your sum range. That's your first area, and it's going to be a range of cells in a column going up and down. And then you want to sum that based on a criteria range. So criteria range 1. So what that means is, what am I referencing in order to figure out what I want to sum up? Well, I want to sum everything in row or column E if in column E, and then so that's my criteria range, and then you do another comma to get to the next stage, and now it's a criteria 1. So usually the format you'll use for criteria is, oh wait, is that a parenthesis or quotation? That's quotation. So you do a quotation mark. Let's say I want to sum up everything in this column that's greater than. So you do the greater than sign and then another quotation mark, and then the and sign, and then let's say 0. So sum everything in E if column E in the same cells is greater than 0. And now I got 89. So what that did is you can see it summed up the 56, the 1, the 2, that's 59, the 25 and the 5, that's a total of 30. So if you sum up everything that's not less than 0 or that's greater than 0, you're at 89. That's how it works. And so that's a very simple use case. You could also do multiple criteria. So let's say here's one. So I'm summing up E if E is greater than 0. Also, we could do if E is, so I do another range E again is, and I could do, let's say, less than, and same syntax here. You got quotation marks, less than sign, quotation marks, and let's say I want to sum up everything that's less than 50 as well. So it's got to be greater than 0 and less than 50. Well, now what number do I get? 33. So what numbers meet that criteria? It would be this one, this one, this one, and this one. So you see that's 33. So it excluded everything that didn't meet the criteria. So this is why it's so powerful. And you could do as many criteria ranges as you want. You could sum up E if, E is greater than 0, E is less than 0, E is um, whatever you can think of. You can keep doing it over and over as many times as you want. And that's why I like the sum ifs with an S, because you can do multiple, or you could just do one and it works fine. The sum if with no S at the end function, it does the ranges backwards. I just don't like it. Okay, so that's sum ifs on the same, if you're summing up the same range of a criteria. Now let's say you're summing up the same range, or you're summing up a range based on the cells of another range. And so to do this, you have to know, okay, first of all, if you're going to sum up cells in a column, it's going to equate um, what's so okay. So let's just do it. So SUMIFS E. Now let's say I want to sum up every value in row E in column E if the row matches what's ever in this criteria. And I want to say, well, only sum up the values if blue matches. So as long as you keep your ranges the same length, so I can do E and F. Uh, but what I can't do is I can't do like E5 to E20. See, well, there's not a criteria there, but you can't do E5 to E20 and then also F. You're going to get all kinds of crazy. It's not going to make any sense. So your two ranges, your criteria range always has to be the same length as the sum range in all subsequent criteria ranges. And this is why I like to not do numbers sometimes. You have to define the number if there's other data that would mess up the calculation, and that's fine. But just make sure, like if I was doing E2 to E7, I would just want to make sure I'm also doing F2 to F7. Same ranges. Otherwise, you're going to start to get some crazy values. Now, so I'm summing up E based on the criteria of F. So I've got my sum range is the first one. The second one is always your criteria range. So what are you measuring E against? So I'm going to measure it against what's in column F. And then what am I looking at in column F? Well, I want to look at, so this is criteria 1. You do a comma, and then I want to say any value in F that is equal to yellow. So there's two ways to do this. Either you could do um, your parenthesis or your quotation equal sign, another quotation, and then if I want yellow, that's another quotation because you have to do text in quotations. So it recognizes that. And there you go. So now it's only taking the 5 and the 1 because those are both yellow. Now the other way is you can have another cell reference that says yellow, and you can say, okay, I'll only want to sum E if F is equal to yellow, and I'm referencing yellow in a range. Well, now you don't need all this crazy syntax. You just do, instead of parentheses equals parentheses and parentheses, the word yellow parentheses, you could just do sum of E if F, and then you don't have to hit equals, you just hit the cell, yellow. Just click it, and it'll populate in there I8. Same number. So that's summing a range based on a criteria in a range of another cell. And you can also add, you could do, okay, some of it's yellow, and some if also if E is, let's say, less than 5. Well, now there's only one that meets that, and that's, there's only one that's less than 5, so it doesn't include this, and the only one that other that's yellow is less than 5 is a value of 1. I could do less than, 50, then we're back up to 6. Um, you could also, uh, let's say I wanted that to be a reference. You could also do some ifs. E if F is yellow and E is 26. I'm sorry, greater than 26. Now, if you're doing a reference of a value, you still have to do the hold on. Where was I there? So we have this. Okay, so a value. So you still have to do the parentheses, less than, parentheses, and, but now instead of just writing out, let's say 25, I could reference this. So less than 26. And again, now if I were to change this to blue, now the total is actually minus 23 because I'm summing the minus 50 because if minus 50 is blue and it's less than 26, The 25 is blue and it's less than 26, and the 2 is blue and it's less than 26. The 56 is above it, so that's not counted. So I'm summing up all these. You can see it's minus 23, and that's what total I'm getting here. Okay, so you kind of get the pattern. You're summing, you do SUMIFS, you click the range you want to sum, and then every single other pair of range and criteria you can do infinitely, and they have the same format. The range can the same range you're summing can also be a criteria range, as you saw. I could sum it based on the values, or it could be any other set of cells. So I could do like sum of this if F is blue, if G is big, if however many criteria you want to figure out, you can do. Okay, so that's the general way that you can use SUMIFS. What I just explained is the biggest ways I do it, which is always either based on other criteria and this reference cell being different than that criteria, or the same range based on the values being greater or less than a certain number. Now, one other thing I wanted to look at with this before we get into the actual application of the SUMIFS within a real product template that I built is, um, let's say, so how do I want to explain this? Um, let's say I have a reference here of colors: yellow, blue, green, red. And let's add a couple more things here. Say red and green. Do another green. It's like a big one. Okay, now let's do this all over again. Let me start from the beginning. And let's say I want to sum up the values if the criteria range matches these, and I want to be able to drag the formula over. Now, dragging the formula just means you're going to hit once you have the formula in here, you hit the little drag box and you drag it over. So you see the little kind of X or cross that happened when I hit the bottom right. I just hit left click that and drag. So that's my goal. So what I'll do is do equals SUMIFS, SUMIFS, open parenthesis, I want to sum E. If F, my target range of comparison, um, another comma. And remember, there's commas between the ranges and the criteria. So your first range E, comma, now my criteria range, I'm going to do F, another comma, and then I'm going to say K2. That's all I have to do. I don't have to put equals because I'm referencing another cell. And now this is going to say, okay, sum up everything in F or E if the value or the text in F is equal to what's in K2. Now, if I want to drag it, I have to lock everything. So I'm going to lock column E by putting a $sign in front of it, both the letters. I'm going to lock F as well, putting a $sign in front of that. And K, I want it to move as I move over the formula. So as I drag it, I want it to change from K to L to M to N. It doesn't matter if the letters are always going to lock going side to side, and the numbers are always locking if you're going up and down. In this case, I'm not even dragging the formula down, so I don't need to lock that. But if I were, I would put a lock on that. We can leave it there for now. It's fine. It's not going to hurt the function. Okay, so I've got the formula. Now I hit the bottom right square, highlight or put my cursor over it, left click and drag. Now look at that. So I now have a sum total based on these criteria I've entered, based on this range of data. So yellow 6, I've got 5, 6 there. Blue's 33. These are all the blue. That's 33. Or I'm sorry, plus the 56 up here. So minus 23 plus 56 is 33. Green, I've got 118. And then red, 6. 1 red. And if I were to change this to red, you see my values change. this concept right here, I can tell you how much billables I've charged doing just this logic for all different use cases. So it's super useful. Like I said, if we were going down, let's say the range I had blue like this. Now I can put my formula back up in that box. And now, so my reference J2, I don't want to lock the number. I do want to lock the letter. And I'm still locking columns E and F by putting $signs in front of the letters on both of those. And now look, I can drag down to get the same values. Now let's say I have another criteria up here, which is, let's say big and small. Oop, small. Let's say small, big, big. Oh, geez. Big, small, small, big. Okay, now look. So you can do big and small. And now you can say, well, I want to sum up all that, but I also want to add, so I'm going to add another range, so comma onto the end of it. If column G, and then all I have to do is put one comma, is big. And here for big, I want to lock it going down, so lock the number, and then going across, I want it to move, so I'm not locking G. So now look, I can drag it over and down. Oh, and I need to lock G. G does need to be locked because I don't want that reference, so my bad, G is locked. So I drag it over, and now I get a variation between what's yellow and big, what's yellow and small, what's blue and big, what's blue and small, what's green and big, what's green and small, what's red and big, and so on. So let's make sure this makes sense. So blue small is negative 48. Blue small, yep, it's only these two, and that's negative 48. Red and small is just 6. Red and big is 111. Yep, 81 for blue and big. So blue and big would be this. 25 and 56. That's 81. So you can see how that works, and you then put one formula. I only did one formula. Now I can drag it over and down, and it does all the right calculations. This concept, huge. I can't explain how much it's used in just general work. It's really crazy. Um, okay, so we've got our SUMIFS. I'll show you in this model here if you want to know how it's actually used in some of financial modeling. Um, we'll start with the general case, which is, let's say I have monthly P&L data here, and this is just arbitrary data on my enterprise SaaS model. Let's say I've got a monthly detail, and I want to convert the monthly detail into an annual. Well, you can see on this annual, look at what we already have here, SUMIFS. And I'm simply summing ifs all of the data in a given row if the year up here matches the year on the annual. And you can see the E2 is locked going down, so I can keep copying and pasting this down, and I won't mess up the reference. The 2 is also locked because I always want to be referencing the monthly row 2 here. I don't want that to start going down as I drag, copy and paste the formula down. And then what's not locked is the sum row, which is 9. And in this case, every time I move the formula down, I want it to move in the same position that the data is on in the monthly. So if it's in 9, if I copy and paste this down to row 18 in here, see it's still 5.1, I could drag it over. So now it's doing row 18. So I went from 9 to 18. That's why the annual details is an exact copy of the spacing of the monthly detail. So that's how it's used in here. For this case, I also use it distributions. Look at this. I'm summing up monthly detail, which is the cash flow. If the month row on the monthly, which is row 2, or I'm sorry, the year row, I'm going to sum up all the values in the cash flow tab, which is uh, row 277. So I want everything in here if the year number matches the year, and only if row 277 is greater than 0, because I don't want negative cash flow values. I'm going to do that in the next row here. So these are all the positive cash flow return um, amounts in each of the 5 years. The next one would be any negative value. So this is burn, or like a net operating loss for the month, and I want that total per year here. And then there's some more complex logic that's going on here to figure out the actual distributable cash flow for the whole model. But that's used in those top 2 rows. I use the SUMIFS there. I also use it in the monthly debt service area. You can see here this is using SUMIFS. There's some other logic ahead of it, but it's using SUMIFS to figure out the total principal and interest based on the column J here matching the month of this here on the monthly detail, and then I can get that value. So you can see 331 and 188 is the numbers here. Let's see, these are rounding, but 331 and 188, yeah. If I remove the decimals, you see that that's that number. And if I go down, let's say, June 2025 is 403 and 114. If I go over June 2025, you're at 403 and 115. And yeah, if I round these, that's the same numbers. So summing up the interest and principal and amortization schedule based on the date matching and pulling that into here, that's another big use that I do all the time. Okay, let's go back to where we were. So I feel like that's a good start if you understand SUMIFS. I would say to try to replicate this first part that I did. Try to get the same, put in these values here and try to make a formula here that sums up all the things. You can also, with the first part of the video, you can kind of follow along with that as well. And yeah, I mean, it literally changed my life. And I remember the first job I did that I had to figure this out. It was like a sales tracker for a supplement company. And I spent probably 13 hours on a Saturday trying to figure out the proper syntax for SUMIFS and trying to apply it to the model. And I was doing it based on date range matches, like summer row, if the date is greater than this or less than this, which is kind of like this, what you're seeing here. But that's another big use, is summing data between ranges. So you can use the concepts here to do that, but let's say you had a date here of 2/1/2022, and this was 6/1, and I had, and let's just drag this over a bit over time, and you had values here. And let's say I wanted to sum up all the values that were from, let's see, we do eDate. Format that. Let's say I wanted to sum up the total per year. I could do SUMIFS, And then my criteria, and the criteria doesn't have to be in a column, it could be in a row. So I'm going to sum up everything in row 14 if the criteria range, so what I'm measuring my criteria against, which is the dates here, and I want to see if those dates are, and I do quotation greater than or equal to, because I want to include the date I'm referencing. So greater than or equal to quotations, and then the and then I want to reference, what is this, J18. And here, since we're going sideways, we don't need to lock anything. If we were going down, we'd have to lock the reference to here, but we don't. And there you go. So it's saying in your, and I could format this to show a year, something like 4-year, 1, 2, 3, 4. So now it's saying, okay, in 2022 I had 593. So does that make sense? Well, hold on. We got to set our second parameter. So this is just summing up everything that's greater than the first day of this year. I also only want to sum up if the range is, so I picked a range, comma, less than or equal to, and I want to do the end of the month of J18, comma 0, or not 0, comma 11. So that's going to give me December 31st, 2022. Now I got it, and now I can just drag this over and get the totals per year. So 2022 is 54. You can see how that's 54. 2023 is 60, which would be these two, and then 2024 is these two. Or, I'm sorry, 60. Yeah, 60 for 2023, and then 2024 is these two at 479. So if you've got a bunch of values and dates tied to that, and you want to clean it up and only in some of the values based on each year, this is a way to do that. And it involves a couple other, you're putting in the first day of the year, then you're doing a formula E date, and then the year, and then 12, which gives you 12 months forward. And then you're summing up everything in this row. And again, your range doesn't have to be a column, it can be a row. And you're doing it if the corresponding row dates are in each year. And you're doing that by doing if this is greater than or equal to this, and if this is less than or equal to the end of month function, which is getting the last day of the month, and you're picking 11 months from the first month, which is going to give you December. So that's like using the SUMIFS to normalize a data set into that's kind of random dates into aggregate per range. And these ranges don't have to be 12 months apart. They could be any amount. Like if I only want to look at 2 years, I could do, I could do that. But I guess, I mean, that's so, there's so many things that just knowing this will help you. So I hope that's it. I'm gonna try to do more. No, I'm not streaming this coming up Monday. I'm gonna be out of town, but I'm gonna try to be doing more helpful stuff like this now and then. Uh, and I just think this is really, if you're learning Excel and you're trying to make your work better and you're trying to build stuff, knowing the SUMIFS function and some different uses for it is super, super important. And there's a million other uses for the SUMIFS. It's just literally only limited by your imagination. All right. Don't forget, check out smarthelping.com. You can see I've built over, 100, what do we got? 95, 103, 114, 116 templates I've done, all unique, all different. And trust me, I'd say 90 or 95% of them are going to use SUMIFS in one way or the other. All right. I'll check you later.